Now, there are a lot of different neural mobilisation techniques that we can do. Some of the simplest ones to start with is just a very basic kind of floss where we might get into a seated supported position, or you can sit in a chair and have this leg up on another one. Just sitting in a position where the leg's supported, up relatively straight, and pulling your toes up and letting them go down. If you're feeling particularly irritated or acute or sore at the time, this might give you some tension down that leg as you pull the toes up. This isn't saying it will necessarily hold for a long time, it's more just move in and out of it, kind of like approach that tension and pain and then go down. Approach it and go down. It's one of the simplest forms of neural mobilisation. We can then also move into a seated slider, which is where we start to get more and more action happening. And we can actually start to go just from only moving the leg to bringing in some spinal motion. Now this obviously depends if you're getting pain with flexion. If you're getting pain with lumbar flexion, you can still use cervical and thoracic flexion or upper back and neck flexion as you do this. But if you're going to do that, then to keep it a slider, we need to tighten it at one end and loosen it at the other. So the slider you often won't feel a lot, unless again you're already quite tight and sore, because you're not tensioning the nerve specifically, you're actually letting it move at both ends. So one end pulls while the other end kind of pushes. The progression of that then is to turn it into a tensioner. So for a full tension slump, what we'd normally look at in the basic version would be hands behind our backs, slumping forward but not rounding back or rolling back. So we just slump forward, chin down to chest, toes pulled up and straightening that leg out. Now, it's often important to try to remember all those steps and to keep them there, because if you are tight when you're doing a tensioner, what you'll often see is starting to almost pull yourself out of it, just because there's so much tension there that it's a natural thing that's going to happen. Now, you can add in more elements to that as well, where you can start to bring the hip slightly across, or the leg slightly across the hip, across the body. You can add in internal rotation there, so that foot starts to turn in. You can also just change the sequence of how you do it. So rather than, you could still start from the top, but then you may straighten the leg out and then pull the toes up, versus pulling the toes up and then straightening the knee. You could also do any variation of that from the lower leg and then incorporating the upper body, and you can see kind of what differences you feel and what you feel like you get more benefit out of. Often it tensions the nerve in a different sequence, so you can experience quite vastly different tension really, and it can be either more easing or more irritating. So play with caution, but explore it over time and see what feels better.